Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, we're going to talk about millennials and the plight that they face because they are priced out of homeownership and they are feeling the pressure, probably the same with Gen Z. Juana, what is a millennial? What is that? Do they come from a certain planet? What is that?
They come from women.
They come from women.
Every one of them.
They come from birthing people.
Every one of them came from a woman.
They came from a woman.
We know that because they have pelvises shaped in a certain way. But these people are 27 to 42 years old.
They're 27, 42.
So those are the millennials. The Gen Zs are the younger cohort of that. So they're the people that are like 20 to 27.
Okay, very good. All right. So what this is a story that was in a paper about a specific person who got married, and as it goes through, so we're going to talk about it because we read the article and we both have the same opinion. But what we're doing here is we're not really, we don't want to pick on them personally, but what we're trying to do is point out some problems with maybe belief systems or whatever, because there's definitely a lot of stuff in this article that was belief-based that had nothing to do with actual facts. Okay, here we go. So the guy in this thing, last name is Rose. Okay, and here's a quote from the article. It says, Rose recently got married. He moved to Beacon, New York, outside of New York City for his wife's job. They make a combined income of $200,000. Now, Juana, $200,000 in Tulsa, Oklahoma is a lot of money for a married couple. You probably have not problem buying a house there, really nice one.
But $200,000 is more money than any previous generation has earned at this stage in their lives, even adjusted for inflation. So $200,000 is still a good bit of money.
Right. And now that is their combined income. So, and they did say they just recently got married. Okay. Here's the next quote from the article. When it came to his dream of buying their first house, the 29-year-old told ABC News Start Here, he came to a sudden realization they were priced out. Juana, he's 29. Now, let's just assume that they make the same. Okay, we're not going to have any gender biases or expectations or prejudices. Let's say they each make $100,000. So they're combined. They're each making $100,000. They make $200,000 together. He's 29. She's probably pretty close in age, right? But we're just guessing. It's not like, yeah. So neither one of them are actually in the poorhouse, right?
No.
They make substantial income.
Right, and by their income, we can infer that they're sufficiently educated.
Okay, all right. Now here's the next one. This is the one that really got me. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about this.
Okay.
It says, in fact, mortgage payments on a home would be nearly $4,000 a month.
Okay.
Okay. Roughly $1,000 more than what Rose and his wife would pay for rent. So here's the thing I hear all the time. You shouldn't buy a house if your payment would be more than your rent payment, which is what landlords love to hear.
Right. So it's a reasonable premise if that's the way you feel about it. The thing to keep in mind is if that's the premise that everyone went by, then those people with a little more tinsel in their hair that faced 18% interest rates would not have purchased a home. Those people that are of our generation that faced 12% interest rates would not have purchased a home. So now Mr. Rose, who's facing 7% interest rates, would probably opt to not purchase a home either. And then he would forego things like income tax deduction.
Okay, let's talk about that one first. Income tax deductions. He's going to get a deduction. Now, if it's $4,000 a month, probably.
Well, so this is New York, and New York has really high property taxes.
Okay, so the property taxes, remember, the property taxes are probably included in this payment.
Right.
So he's going to get the deduction for the taxes, the deduction for the mortgage interest, let's say $3,500 a month. He's going to get over $40,000 a year in tax deductions. Okay, now remember, he's complaining about $1,000 a month shortfall. That he's not like that page is like it's going out. It's gone. It went into a massive thing. The Oompa Loompas got it. He can never get it back. Okay. Right. Soylent Green. Right. It's gone. Now, here's the thing. So $4,000 a month. Let's break down the $4,000.
So, so a portion of that's going to be property taxes, a portion of that will be interest, a portion of that will be principal, and a portion of that will be
insurance.
Insurance.
Now,
Correct.
What is principal? I don't know principal. What does that mean?
So that is equity that he's building. So for that $4,000, he's going to get a massive tax deduction, which with them earning $200,000 a year, that's probably something that would be beneficial.
He's probably in 30-something% bracket.
Okay. So he's going to get a tax deduction for the interest and the property taxes. He's going to get equity from the principal payment. And he's also going to have the advantage of having the home appreciate based on the purchase price, not based on the amount that he's actually paying between the down payment and his monthly payment. So if, for the sake of argument, he is buying a $500,000 house, he is going to get appreciation off that $500,000, not off the $100,000 that he put down. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay, so let's talk about this. $4,000 a month payment, probably $400 or $500 of that has got to be principal reduction.
Right, because I mean, at $4,000 a month, we can kind of take a swag at it that he's probably looking at somewhere around $600,000 purchase.
Okay, so let's say it's $500 a month principal reduction. That's half of the $1,000. He's paying off a loan on the house. So forget about the house appreciating. Let's not even assume it's going to appreciate. It is. We'll assume it won't. So that's half of the $1,000 right there. It's basically going back in his pocket.
It is. The other thing to keep in mind is that even though his rent is $3,000 a month right now, his rent will get to $4,000 a month for the same exact place that he's renting in pretty short order. Probably, certainly within 5 years, his rent will get there. And that means that whole time he will not have built equity. He will not have gotten a tax deduction for anything because he's paying rent. And he has not had control of his home. So that means that his landlord could have sold the property and then he would have to move if he sold it to an owner-occupant. So there are all kinds of issues to discuss there. But the bottom line of it is that by buying a house now, he's taking control of his housing payment. He's taking control of the security of his home as far as not having to worry about the house being sold out from under him and him having to move. And he's getting all those tax deductions plus appreciation. If
you make $200,000 a year and you're complaining about $1,000 difference between rent and buy, you should buy immediately. Just the tax deduction alone that you're likely to get, talk to a tax accountant, right? Plus the principal reduction, it probably exceeds the $1,000. Like there's no question in my mind. All he has to save is $6,000 a year in taxes, and he's paying over $40,000 a year. And remember, this is marginal income, so forget the effective rate over all your income. This is the income at the very end of his thing because that's the income it would be coming from. So if he could save $600 a month, $6,000 a year would be $500 a month. Then he's putting $500 principal down payments a wash, not counting appreciation of the house. Like literally, I believe this is short-sighted to just look at the $4,000 because you get benefits from that. The $3,000 a month, Wanda, how much of that do you get to deduct in taxes?
So you, depending on your tax situation, so all things being equal.
Of rent.
Oh, as far as rent?
Yeah, if you're renting for $3,000.
Nothing.
You don't get any?
Nothing.
Okay.
So, it's really important to remember that, particularly, in this case, we can assume that these people are reasonably educated, and just taking pencil to paper for them to figure out that it is still financially beneficial to buy in this environment versus renting, in particular because we know that over time interest rates will likely go down, whether it's in a year or 2 years, whenever. That they're going to go down, then he can refinance, bring down his payment, and be in a better situation. These generations they're well educated. I think it's just sticker shock because there's that chasm between expectation and reality.
Okay, here's the next quote. This is a quote from the person. Just that gap between renting and then owning, not even a big house, just kind of a starter house, It's like it's not even possible for us, Rose said. Not now or probably not anytime soon. It's $4,000 a month. So you could pay $3,000 a month in rent that you get no value out of. But then you won't want to pay $1,000 more a month when you make $200,000 a year. You don't want to pay an extra $1,000 a month that's going to give you all these benefits. You're probably actually better financially to pay $4,000 a month, get the tax break, get the appreciation of the property over time, and also get the principal reduction of the mortgage than you are just to throw $3,000 a month.
Right. So I mean, and that's what I meant about putting pencil to paper. I think if they put pencil to paper, they would realize that at the very least, it's a push, if not a financial advantage for them to buy in their particular situation. But again, if we don't know what other debt they carry, we don't know how close things are for them, but we're just kind of making some assumptions.
Right. But let's say, for example, they were med students and they have debt and stuff. Wouldn't they want more tax? Because a tax deduction lets them put more in their pocket. So they could be actually netting more money by doing this. This is the argument we've always made with people sell their house is it's how much you net. It's not what you pay, right?
Right.
Okay. Here's the next quote. The U.S. is currently short roughly 3.8 million units of housing, both for sale and for rent. According to Freddie Mac, the government-sponsored agency that provides funding for mortgages, smaller banks and lenders. When there is a shortage, let's talk supply and demand, right? Supply and demand. When there is a shortage, how does that affect price?
Prices tend to go up.
Okay.
So, do we remember the people who bought toilet paper from Costco over the pandemic?
Eggs, not that long ago. Remember the great egg shortage of 2022, I think? Okay. So both for sale and for rent. What's going to happen to their rent in the future?
So rent will go up.
Okay. What about home prices?
It's reasonable if we believe that rent goes up, that home prices go up.
Okay, so this house that we'll say is maybe $600,000, small house, a starter house, whatever. It's going to be more by the time they decide. Like it probably will be years before the payment. The payment may never be less of the mortgage than it could be to rent. But they will always say, we just can't afford it yet. We're making $300,000 a year, but we don't want to pay $5,000 a month because our rent is $4,500, and we need that $500 a month difference. But you see the problem here.
Yes.
Okay. Here's another quote, and this is the one that really got my attention. Okay. Occasionally on social media, we'll see someone who just bought a house, and you're like, "Well, how do they pull that off? And what are we doing wrong?" He said, so I think you kind of get like impostor syndrome of what am I doing wrong? Juana, what are they doing wrong?
They're not putting pencil to paper. Okay. Look, I mean, in all seriousness, that is what people have to do is they have to figure out what are their expenses? What do they spend their money on? How does this impact their finances going forward? You know, once they calculate in whatever tax benefits they get, whatever amount of money goes toward principal. What does it actually look like for them, and what is their financial impact? And you know, our position is that it is likely that they are actually better off financially buying because of the tax incentives and because of the principal reduction payments than if they rented. But of course, you know, like I said, everybody's situation is different, so put pencil to paper.
Okay, so here's an example I'm going to give you. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was a captain in the Marine Corps. I was a pilot making about $55,000 a year when I got out. And this was in the mid-90s, and I got hired at an airline. Now, first-year airline pays about $2,000 a month, which is about what I made. I made about $2,000 a month. But when I got hired by this major airline, I was still on active duty for a few months because I had terminal leave. So I was still getting high pay. So I went out and bought a house with my VA benefits. Now the pay, this was a super nice house. It was like a 4-bedroom, 2,000 square feet, and it was in a nice area in Colorado Springs. My payment was $1,100 a month, which I totally qualified for with my Marine Corps income. The VA was like, you qualify, right? Now, I only got a couple more paychecks after closing, and then I was just solely living on this $2,000 a month, right? So no kidding, my mortgage payment was all of my first paycheck and then some of my second paycheck, right? To make the payment. And I put zero down. I didn't put any money down. And this was at probably 8.5% rate in the mid 90s. I think I paid 8.5% on the rate. So I was really, it was tight. Now you're pricing, well, it was dumb. You shouldn't have done that. Well, the difference between a rental at the time would have been about $200. I would have paid probably between 900 and 1,000. So yes, it was more, but it was only a couple $100 more. But remember what we said, we get all these benefits. So I did get a deduction for the taxes, and I did get to build, we're paying principal. Well, here's the amazing thing. 4 years later, I got transferred to a different base. I went from being like a co-pilot to a captain after only 4 years. But I had to move because I moved to this other base, which was Chicago. So I moved from Colorado to Chicago. We sold the house. In 4 years, we paid $166 for the house. Sold the house for $248 in 4 years. Now this was the late 90s. So this was 99 to 2000 or 96 to 2000. So those 4 years were good for real estate. If anyone who owned a house then knew that those were like really good times. 2000, 2001, 2002 weren't super great, but I literally probably walked away with 60 plus thousand, 65,000 maybe after commissions and everything that I took with me that I could use to roll into the next house, or just not roll all of it in, but just have some extra money. Would not have had that if I would have rented, right?
Right.
And yes, it was a little painful, but there was a big reward in the end.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have similar stories with building equity, and that it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to buy the house. It wasn't easy to make the payments, but we managed, we learned, we got stronger, we got maybe a little better off financially for it. And that was the experience we had. And I think this generation is going to have to go through something similar. For those that are struggling, they're going to face similar struggles that we face. Like I said, the baby boomers faced the 18% interest rates. We faced 10, 12% interest rates. They're facing 7% and change interest rates. We faced rising home prices. They're facing rising home prices. It's not substantially different. I think this is something every generation kind of has to cut its teeth on, and I think for those that manage it well and learn from it, they're going to be successful.
I think it's two problems. Problem number one is people have seen their friends who, and I've met some of these people, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. They bought a house in 2019, 2020, 2021, even in a competitive market, but they got a super low rate, their payment's super low. And they talk to their friends and they're like, hey, I bought a house. This is great. And they're like, oh, hey, we should go buy a house. And then they go look and they realize that home prices are a lot more than their friend paid, and the interest rates are a lot more than their friends got. And now they're like, oh, so what they're rooting for is this panacea of prices crashing, interest rates tanking, and then they can just like step in leisurely and go select the property of their choice, have it really low payment. Not likely to happen.
No, not likely to happen. So like I said, it's a learning opportunity for them.
Okay. We are not saying, because I know right now there's going to be comments people are going to make comments about, you're saying it's a good time to buy a house. I'm not saying it's a good time to buy. We've never said, we're just pointing out the benefits, because you say, oh, it's $1,000. That's too much. Well, what if it was $500? Is $500 enough? Or is that, no, it has to be the same or less? Well, then it's never going to be this. You're never going to buy a house.
Well, it's kind of like the right time to settle down and with a partner, or have children, or have a pet, or whatever. Everybody's situation's different.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to find your own way. We understand that there are, like a third of the home buyers this year have been millennials.
Yeah.
So
no, 38% of all people under the age of 35.
35.
So millennials and Gen Zs.
Okay.
38% are homeowners.
Okay. So that's a great thing. These are people that are taking responsibility for their housing costs, and they're building equity, and that's a good thing. And everybody else, you know what? It's okay. You'll find your own way, and you'll buy a home when it's right for you.
If you had a kid who was going to buy a house right now, what advice would you give them?
I would say, buy the house that suits you well. Make sure you can afford it. Make sure you have a rainy day fund for things like that go wrong with the house or things that go wrong with your job. And, remember that it's an investment in your own future and in your own stability.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That's it.
I like it.
So leave us your real estate related comments. If you have adult children out there, are you helping them buy a house? If you don't have adult children out there and you have young ones, at what age did you buy your first house? Let us know in the comments. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.